Hello, my name is Yoshi Bauer. Welcome to the My Special Needs Connection webinar and podcast series. As a parent of children with special needs and as a professional advocate, I understand the challenge of connecting parents and professionals with the information that they need to serve children and adults with special needs. At My Special Needs Connection, we empower parents and professionals through valuable instruction and insights of experts in the special needs community. We're excited to come alongside you to provide you with information that you need. Let's grow through the exchange of knowledge and the hope of success. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and YouTube channel for new releases. Please enjoy our webinars and podcasts.
My name is Cara Fairfax, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I specialize in pregnancy, postpartum, and early childhood mental health. And I work with parents who have typically developing children, as well as parents who have children who have been born with disabilities or different types of abilities. A lot of the parents I work with have children who were NICU babies and who have had impact on their development as a result of being born prematurely. Today I'd like to talk about brain development in children as well as regulation and how the two impact one another. Regulation is the ability to get ourselves calm and keep ourselves calm. And there are two kinds. There's self-regulation and co-regulation. Self-regulation doesn't really occur until we're quite a bit older. Little children cannot self-regulate. They must learn how to regulate, and they have to learn by having their parents co-regulate with them. A lot of what I want to talk about today is going to be based on the work of Dr. Daniel Siegel, and he is a specialist in the area of brain development and has written several amazing books that I highly recommend for any parent. His most recent is The Whole Brain Child, and it has a wonderful explanation of brain development, children, parenting skills to help with regulation and co-regulation. So when we talk about self-regulation, we're talking about the ability to use our own tools, our own ability to get calm and stay calm. And that's very hard to do. In order to do that, you need to recognize that you are dysregulated or hyper anxious, angry, scared, something like that. Little children often don't have the ability to do that. They simply feel and act. There's no thinking involved in that. And so helping a child or even an adult recognize that they need to calm down or regulate is the first step. Because children or adults who haven't learned how to do it well don't recognize when they need help, we can step in as parents and help them. Self-regulation requires a certain degree of brain development. And when we think about our brain, we know that we have a top and a bottom and a right and a left. So I'm going to demonstrate something with my hand that Dan Siegel uses, and you can find this all over the internet, and you'll be able to see it in some of the included slides here. Dr. Siegel talks about our hand as the whole brain. This part of our brain right here is our primal brain, which is back here. We come into the world with this part of our brain completely formed. This is the part of the brain responsible for breathing, temperature regulation, blinking, and all of those automatic feelings. This is a feeling part of the brain. So fight, flight, freeze, and shut down are regulated right here. And we have no control over what happens here with our thoughts. It just happens. Then he says we have a staircase. So this is the downstairs brain, and this is our upstairs brain right here. This is up here, the prefrontal cortex, or the frontal lobe. And this is where thinking, strategies, problem solving, all of that comes in. So this is our thinking brain, and this is our emotional automatic brain. We have a staircase that connects the downstairs brain to the upstairs brain, and this is the whole brain. When the upstairs and downstairs brain are connected and working together, we have a regulated person, someone who is in control of their actions, their behaviors, even some of their thoughts. What happens though is when a person is scared or upset or even super happy. So if we think like with mania is super happiness, but mania could cause us to lose that connection. So when the downstairs part of the brain is overwhelmed with an emotion, we flip our lid. The upstairs thinking brain gets detached from the lower brain, from the staircase to the lower brain, and the only part of the brain that is functioning is this emotional, automatic brain. The part of our brain that is thinking and planning and helping us stay calm isn't connected. So we need to get it reconnected to the staircase, to the lower brain, so that we are once again functioning with both parts of our brain. That's how so this would be a regulated person. This is your dysregulated or flip your lid person. And when it comes back online, we have regulation again. So in the downstairs brain, and you'll see in the slides in this webinar, the downstairs brain has our feelers and the upstairs brain has our thinkers. And Dr. Siegel, when working with parents and children, we teach children these things. So we can teach our children about this brain development and how the brain works. Downstairs we have feelers like alerting Al or scared Sam, things like that. And upstairs we have maybe calm Carly, problem-solving Paul. And again, when they're working together, alerting Al, who gets nervous about something because, you know what, Mom just dropped me off at therapy and now she's leaving for a little bit and I feel really uncomfortable. So alerting Al is starting to get all worked up, which means that the brain, the thinking brain, is starting to disconnect because the emotion is taking over. So if problem-solving Paul or calming Carly can go, hey, wait a minute, hey, alerting Al, it's okay, look, Mom's right through that window. You can turn your head, you can see Mom, or Mom left her sweater. You know Mommy's coming back because she left her sweater. That helps to keep them connected. So they're working together to stay regulated. We also have right and left brain. And the right brain is our emotional brain, our creative brain, our descriptive brain. And our left brain is very logical and linear and language. The left brain likes to problem solve and the right brain likes to describe. So we have top and bottom and right and left. And when we talk about right and left, Dan Siegel has a wonderful diagram that again you'll see in the slides about the river of integration. And you have this image of a person in a boat, in a little rowboat, floating down the river of integration. But on each side, we have a bank. On one side, we have the bank of chaos, and on the other side, we have the bank of rigidity. Rigidity would represent the left brain, very focused and logical, and this is the way it is. The right brain, the bank of chaos, would represent more of the right brain, the creativity, the descriptor, the emotional brain. And the idea is that we want to be floating down the middle of this river of tranquility or this river of integration of the two banks right in the middle, because that's where we're integrated. That's where we have the perfect balance of language and logic and explanation and problem solving with the perfect balance of emotionality and description and creativity. And when they're balanced, we have a nice regulated person who can enjoy the pleasures of the emotional life with the balance of the logical life. But what happens is when, again, that bottom brain, when those feelers start to take over, we drift towards one bank. Or sometimes our logical brain takes over and we drift towards that bank. And the trick is to move back into the center and to be in the center as much as possible. It is not humanly possible to be in the middle of the river of integration all the time. It's also not possible to stay on one of those banks all the time. The human being, a human creature, cannot tolerate dysregulation for long, long periods of time. They will peak and come back down on their own. We don't want someone to remain in that hyper stressed out point. We want to help them come back down as quickly as possible so that they can feel better, because when we peak, when we're stressed, when we're anxious, when we're mad, when we're scared, when we're having a traumatic trigger, we have a release of all of these hormones that are going on in our body as well. And that's not good for us, all of those stress hormones. So we ideally want to come back down. So we have our whole brain, we flip our lids and become dysregulated. With help, and I'll talk about how moms and dads and other adults can help us, we can bring that frontal lobe back online, get our whole brain again. We can help keep in the middle of that river of integration and have a nice, stable, regulated child or adult. So that's Dan Siegel's work, and again, I highly recommend his books. They're fantastic. The trick, though, is that because children cannot self-regulate, we have to go into and recognize they can't do this on their own. So something upsets the child, and it could be something as basic as they want to keep playing and it's time to go, and you need to get them wrapped up and off and into the car and off you go. It could be something sensory. It could be they don't like the way the socks feel around their ankles. It could be something emotional that triggers them. It could be a sense of, children don't want to play with me, or the teacher never calls on me, or something like that. And so they are triggered. And we can help them by recognizing that. When we recognize that our children are dysregulating, we can come in and co-regulate with them. So your kiddo is having a meltdown of some sort to some degree. What do? Sometimes in parenting I teach we ignore, but we only ignore undesired behaviors when it is truly behavioral. When you know that if you gave in, if your child wants a cookie and you said no, and the child has a tantrum or starts screaming, that if you gave them the cookie, they would pull it together like that. That's behavioral. Children dysregulate and have meltdowns because they are emotionally dysregulated. And it's not just about not getting what they want. It might start with that, and then it could shift into the emotional dysregulation. We don't want to leave a child or a person dysregulated when we have the ability to help them regulate. It's just not kind and it's not right. So when we see a child dysregulating, we as the parent or the adult have to recognize that this is not behavioral. This is not my child trying to drive me crazy. This is not a child trying to intentionally bother their siblings or their peers. This is a child who has flipped their lid or is flipping their lid and needs help. That can be a lot harder to do than it sounds, because there's a lot of our own emotion wrapped up in how we interact with and relate to our children. They trigger us. They drive us crazy sometimes. We love them to pieces, but my God, their tantrums and their behaviors can push us to the limit. And so if you are being pushed to the limit, now you're flipping your lid. Well, you cannot help your child calm down if you are not calm. If you're like this, you can't help. So we have to, as adults, really work on how do we take care of ourselves? How do we recognize our own triggers? How do we recognize our own irritations and our own emotional state in the moment so that we can bring ourselves back, get our frontal lobe online, and keep everything integrated? We want to be in the river of integration too. So we have to be calm in order to tolerate our child's dysregulation and co-regulate with them to help them calm down. That's really hard. And I encourage you that if you have difficulty with anger, if you have difficulty with trauma, if you have difficulty with relationships, please seek out the support you need. It is critical. You have a right to feel good, and your child needs you to be able to do this for them. Children who have been born with disabilities, children who have been through lots of medical interventions, NICU experiences, these things all position the parent and the child to be to experience trauma. And it's unusual when a family has not experienced trauma as a result of an unexpected birth, an unexpected medical condition that has led to your child being a different child than maybe you anticipated or expected they would be. So please seek help. It's important. going back to the regulation and how we co-regulate with our kiddos. So you are calm. Let's say you're calm, your kiddo's having a little meltdown or they're escalating and you want to help them. You want to co-regulate. There are some techniques you can use. The one is you got to recognize your own emotion and keep it under control. I'm feeling really irritated right now, but I'm going to choose to check it, put it in this little box, put it over here, and I'm going to deal with it later after my child has calmed down. Get down on their eye level. Be face-to-face with them. There's even some science that talks about getting beneath their eye level so that the child is kind of looking down on you. There's some science that says that that can be really helpful too. So if your child's sitting, try laying down on your side and see what that does. But some really great tools, and again, these are Dan Siegel's tools, are connect to redirect and name it to tame it. And these tools are designed to help our brain speak to the brain of the child. So connect to redirect is recognizing that when your child has flipped their lid, the only part of the brain functioning is this lower emotional brain, or the right brain. The right emotional brain is functioning. So we need to talk to our children using the same brain, part of the brain that is working in them right now. Usually what happens is children are flipping their lids, they're crying, screaming, yelling, throwing their toys, or making a stink about things, dilly-dallying and slamming doors. And we go to them with our thinking brain, our left brain, and we're saying, what's the big deal? Calm down. It's not that big of a deal. You'll get the cookie after dinner. You're going to have fun. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to be okay. Well, our brain is talking, our thinking brain is talking to their thinking brain. But their thinking brain isn't functioning. It's offline. It's flipped. We have to talk to their emotional brain because this is the only part of their brain that can process anything right now. So we need to recognize that, and we need to connect with that lower emotional or right emotional brain. And we do that sometimes by just being quiet. We can go up to them, and if touch will be helpful, just touch, rub the back, pat the back, touch the shoulder, maybe give a hug. You could ask, do you need some comfort right now? Comfort's a great word. And if the child does this, give them comfort. Giving comfort to help a child regulate is more important in that moment than in teaching or enforcing a limit or a lesson about you can't do that. You'll get to that. But first you have to connect, calm down, and then you teach the lesson. Again, that frontal lobe is offline. There is no teaching going on during a tantrum. Don't even try. So we use our brain. The other way is, so the child, you'll probably notice, if they're crying, you get this sobbing, and as they start to calm down, there's a, right? You can sense it. Okay, great. So you kind of sit with that, rub the back. Now use name it to tame it. Name the emotion. When we name an emotion, our nervous system automatically comes down a notch. There's science behind this. So you are so upset right now. Quiet rubbing. Child's crying. Wow, you're really having a hard time right now. That made you so sad. Child's calming down. When we name it, we feel heard. You have taken your lower emotional brain, your right emotional brain, and you're speaking to theirs, and their brain is resonating. Someone noticed me. Someone cares about me. Someone sees me. That's powerful. As a parent, I say to you, if you're upset, and I say to you, it's not that big a deal, that doesn't sound so hard. I mean, I think just do it. That's not going to feel very good. When your spouse does that to you, when your brother or sister, your mother or father do that to you, it does not feel good. Our child does not feel good when we speak to their thinking brain when only their emotional brain is working. So as the child calms down, name it to tame it, connect to redirect, and what happens is they do redirect. As they calm down, then you can start to say, gosh, that was a really tough time for you. Honey, what made you so upset? Because their thinking brain is starting to come back online. And as that's happening, we can start to talk to the thinking brain with our thinking brain, which is more around answering questions. It's more language. This is where language is. This is where explanation and problem solving is. So, sweetie, what made you so upset? I don't know. Oh, you don't know. Okay, that's all right. It's all right. You know, and so we can start to talk to them. What would make it better next time? What can we do right now to help you feel even better? I just need a hug. I need to snuggle. I want to play more. And so we accommodate to the extent that we can. Now, this is not foolproof, and it's not 100% the first time you do it, because we're human. And our emotions happen just because they do. These skills, though, when we do brain-to-brain connecting, you will see a difference in how your child reacts. When we're doing brain-to-brain connection, we're connecting with our child, and they are feeling heard, understood, and felt, and they will calm down. If we are not connecting, if we're coming at them with our thinking brain and they're in their emotional brain, we are almost antagonizing and triggering more difficult behavior because the child doesn't feel heard, understood, seen, or cared about. And that's not what we want for our kids. Not only we want them to calm down, we want the crying to stop, we want the behavior to improve, but we want our kids to feel loved, we want them to feel safe, we want them to feel loved and cared about, and that's how you do it. You use your right brain to connect to their right brain, the emotional brains, and then you redirect into a more thoughtful, strategic, logical space once the emotional brain has calmed down and those thinkers are back online. So that is those tools of getting on their eye level, waiting quietly and patiently for them to have their meltdown. If you're having a meltdown, you're not going to have it in 60 seconds. It takes a little while. They're entitled to their meltdown too. Connect to redirect. Really focus on how you're connecting with your brain to their brain, and name it to tame it. These tools are going to go a long way in helping your child calm down. You can use them when you start to see them escalate too, so we can try to bring that escalation back down before it becomes a problem. So when you see the child frustrated with a puzzle piece, or you see the child, you give them the warning, honey, 10 more minutes and we have to go. In those following 10 minutes, you can be using skills, positive parenting skills, including name it to tame it, in order to help the child make that transition and hopefully keep that escalation under control. The part that you are responsible for as a parent is keeping your emotional piggy bank full, or at least with some currency in there. I think that parents have their piggy bank drained every day into the red, and that's real. Own that, respect it, and honor it. But seek out the help you need, whether it's your regular foofy coffee at Starbucks, or it's your counseling session once a week, or your good friends, your leisure time, your gym, you're sitting in the backyard listening to the birds, whatever it is, you have to take care of yourself. If you don't, you cannot keep your frontal lobe connected in order to help